Hey everyone, this is my first YouTube video, so please be kind if the editing feels rough. I was recently commissioned to make this custom set of dice for a D&D character. She's an Aasimar cleric with moon and stars motifs, and is colored like the night sky. I really love this aesthetic, so I definitely wanted to make sure that these dice matched her theme. At this point I'm feeling inspired, so let's make some dice. I start by pulling out all the materials that I plan to use: purple and sapphire blue resin ink, black, white, and wisteria pigment paste from Let's Resin, glow-in-the-dark powder from Let's Resin, cast magic pearly blue from Smooth On, superstar shimmer blue from Just Pigments, moonstone pigment powder from somewhere, silver moon glitter, blue iridescent star glitter, and some white craft feathers. I start by pressing some moon and star glitters to the faces inside of each of the dice molds. I don't want to add too many, so I aim for about 5 stars and 2 moons in each die. Glitter sticks to silicone, so these should stay put when the resin is poured in later. Next, I cut up some craft feathers so they're small enough to fit into the molds. I place one in each die and give them a little twirl so the barbs all flow in the same direction. I like doing this with feathers because I think it makes them look a little more dynamic. Now that my mold is prepped, I'm going to set it aside for just a moment and organize my resin cups. I know I want to use purple and dark blue, so I set those out as 2 separate cups and knock over my bottles in the process. I also want to mix all of my shimmer powders together, so I add some superstar shimmer blue, moonstone pigment, and pearly blue powder to 1 cup. Finally, I want to add a bit of glow powder and some white pigment to the last cup. Now that I've planned my colors, it's time to mix up the resin. I use Illuminate Clear Slow, which is a 2-part epoxy resin that gets mixed 1-to-1 by weight. I use a kitchen scale to make sure my proportions are right and aim for 32 milliliters each of part A and part B. Close enough. I stir with a popsicle stick until there aren't any streaks of unmixed resin left, and then divide the resin between each of my cups, add my drops of ink, and use a toothpick to add my pigment paste. I pour the translucent purple resin into each mold until they're about 1/3 of the way filled up, then add a little dark blue resin until they're about 2/3 of the way full. I use a little plastic pipette to draw up a bit of sparkly resin, and then squeeze in a swirl shape to inject that into the middle of each die. I do the same for a little of the white resin too. I top up the mold with more sparkly and blue resin, then smear a thin layer on the lid to help avoid bubbles. I use a lighter across the mold to pop any surface bubbles before gently pressing it down into place. My molds have reservoirs built into the lid to hold excess resin, so I fill those up before putting everything in the pressure pot to cure overnight at 30 psi. After letting these cure, it's time to demold and see how they turned out. I pop off the lid and use some packing tape to help peel up the extra resin flashing. I carefully break the seal around each of the dice to loosen the mold and then gently push from the bottom to pop them out. I bring everything over to my makeshift light box to get a better look and take some close-up photos. I think these came out great. There's just a few surface bubbles on 2 of the low faces, which I'll be able to fill with UV resin later. The color is this deep, gorgeous blue, and the shimmer powder looks just like stars in the night sky. The feathers add an interesting texture, and the glitter looks great too. The white resin with the glow powder ended up sinking a little more than I'd wanted, but it looks like clouds on a moonlit night, which still matches the theme. I send the photos for review and get approval to move forward, so it's time to let these sit for a few more days to finish curing. After letting the dice sit for a few days, I take my X-Acto knife and carefully cut away any extra flashing and sprue marks. With these looking a little less rough, I'll get ready for painting. I gather paper towel strips, isopropyl alcohol, a small plastic cup, silver enamel paint from test stores, and a small paintbrush. I pour some isopropyl alcohol into the cup and start painting the numbers on each die, using a paper towel dipped in alcohol to wipe away any excess paint. I also planned to paint all the high faces white, so I'd pull out my tester's white gloss enamel paint to use on those faces once I finish with the silver everywhere else. Once the paint is dried, I get out my Zona papers and add a few drops of water to each one for wet sanding. I start with the green sheet and sand down the face until the sprue marks disappear. I then move on through the rest of the papers until the surface is polished and shiny like the other faces. This is where I'll also patch any surface bubbles as I come across them before polishing up the rest of the dice. I want to give a huge thank you to my commissioner for the opportunity to create these dice for their character. I really appreciate it. I plan to upload more dice making videos in the future, so if you enjoyed this one, maybe consider subscribing. And if you want your own custom dice, you can sign up for my waitlist over at catmagedice.com. Oh wait, Finch wants to be in the video too.
What? No.
Thanks for watching, and have a nice day.